Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome, dear viewers from around the world. Welcome. We would like to welcome our viewers 30 million strong in Nigeria. We would like to welcome our viewers in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Malaysia. We'd like to welcome our fans in Pakistan and around the world to an all-new and exciting episode of your program, Let's Talk. I'm still your host, Malik, and today we have another interesting and informative topic. Today we're going to talk about immigration in modern times. Everybody's moving around. What is the benefit of all this moving? Is it even recommended? Today we see people in countries like Egypt, Libya, Sudan, Morocco, Tunis, all over the world dying to immigrate to Western countries like Canada, Australia, France, England, America, even Japan. That's what we call more traditional migration. On the other hand, we have a smaller amount of people in those Western countries moving to the Middle East, searching for a more Islamic way of life. SubhanAllah, this is a very strange time we're living in. And we need a very, very, very special guest in order to clarify this topic. And of course, we have a Muslim Canadian scholar for you today. He's written numerous books I'm sure you're familiar with. He's written Muhammad in the Bible, Selected Prayers in Islam, Gender Equity in Islam. The list goes on and on. Christian evangelists are publishing entire books and articles and websites in order to refute this man's da'wah attempts. Alhamdulillah, none of it has worked. You can check him out on his own website, which is www.jamalbadawi.org. And of course, now you know who I'm talking about, Dr. Jamal Badawi. Dr. Jamal, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for coming back to be on another episode of Let's Talk. We certainly value your time.
Thank you.
And of course, we have our brothers from the studio audience. Thank you guys for being here. I would like to greet you also with assalamu alaikum as well. Excellent. Thank you, brothers, for being here. Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Jamal, strange times we're living in. Why is it that so many people are dying to immigrate to the Western world?
Actually, that phenomenon is not only limited to Muslims.
Okay.
If it comes to certain causes behind it. There are what you might call economic immigrants, people who find that they are not able to use their capability or find work, and they migrate to some place where there may be a better opportunity to improve their career or profession.
Excellent.
Some people migrate initially for study, and then they find that they can again be more productive and having more facilities to continue with their professions. There may be some people who migrate, maybe few, with the explicit purpose of sharing the message of Islam. So even if they have another job, they keep in their mind also the duty to disseminate the message of Islam. There are some who migrate because of family ties.
Of course, that's
in
another.
some places Lebanese. This one is from Kharbat Roha. This is her family and relatives. Just come and join in. So there's a variety, of course. This is not unusual. It happens.
It happens throughout history. It's a complicated topic, that's for sure. But it does seem, Doctor, nowadays we have so many people throughout the quote-unquote developing world, and they're dying to immigrate to the so-called developed world, to reside there, to live there, and they're looking for a better life. But isn't this a sign of weakness on behalf of the Muslim Ummah, that we are dying to immigrate to countries, the same countries that are perhaps making a war against us?
Not necessarily, because some other reasons for immigration is the persecution that they are living under in their authoritarian in their home countries. Some might migrate because they've been followed by the secret police, and sometimes their life even might be
in danger.
So it's difficult to have a stereotypical
situation,
explanation of all of this reason. In some cases, it could be also weakness. You're right. There might be some people who feel that the Western world is superior in every respect, maybe in technology, in knowledge.
Certainly, right.
But in values, sometimes they don't appreciate the values, whether spiritual or moral, that Islam teaches that the West also needs. Not that they don't have it, but that it could help contribute in that area. But people who see things in materialistic things, the trapping, and so sometimes they feel that this is a superior civilization.
That's
that happened in the past also when people migrated to the Muslim land.
Excellent.
When Muslims were leaders in science and technology.
So history has a way of repeating itself.
Somehow,
that's an excellent point you made, that people maybe it's an effect of an inferiority or colonialization kind of complex, that people have the idea that we have to go to the Western countries because they are more advanced and more civilized. But just because a country is more advanced technologically, it doesn't mean that we have to define civilization, like you said. Perhaps, say, a family in Egypt, for example, or any Middle Eastern country, they enjoy better values in family life and spiritual concepts than they would in the United States. What has your experience been? I know that you live in Canada now. Do you feel it's lacking, the Canadian experience is lacking on the spiritual side as well?
Well, again, I cannot stereotype. I have met a lot of Christians in particular. Sometimes I engage in dialogue or trialogue with Jewish people also, but the greatest majority, of course, in North America are Christian or people from a Christian background. And I found some of them to be very moral people in their outlook. They may not represent the majority, I don't know.
Right.
But very moral and very decent people to deal with. You see, some people might think that this is weakness or trying to please anyone. No, we please Allah alone. And we have our example from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Muslims were persecuted in Mecca, and the first migration, when he recommended to them to go to Abyssinia, he said there is a Christian king in whose realm or under whose rule nobody is wronged. Now he's a person who has a different religion.
Right.
Of course, there are points of agreement, but there are points of disagreement.
Of course.
Yet the Prophet ﷺ is praising that Christian king because of the quality of being just. So I think our view of the West should not be, like I mentioned earlier, an irrational, anti-American, anti-European, anti-this, without any qualifier. We are anti things that are wrong, but we are for things that are good, and there are the good and bad.
Excellent point. Yeah,
we need a balanced,
we have to have a balanced approach. Excellent point. You mentioned, thank you for mentioning that, the first immigration, is that considered the first immigration in Islam to Abyssinia?
That's right. Before, of course, the major immigration that took place, of course, to Medina.
Doctor, some people say, there's some Muslim scholars that say, this concept of immigration and immigrating to other countries, it no longer exists, because after the conquest of Mecca, Prophet Muhammad, peace be with him, said there's no more immigration. I know you know the hadith, the facts more than me, so maybe you can elaborate about that.
I think what they're referring to is the hadith, لا هجرة بعد الفتح.
Yes.
After the conquest. وإذا استنفرتم فانفروا. You see, I think that hadith has, in my humble view, has been overgeneralized. If we were to understand a text from the Quran or hadith, we have to find the historical context and the textual context also to make sure whether that is generalizable or deal with a given situation.
Okay, not so simple.
Exactly.
There's a background.
Not as simple as it may appear. Of course, the hijrah here that the Prophet ﷺ speaks about are people who sacrificed a lot, and that's why the Quran praises them. They did not migrate to get more money,
better job, for example,
or better job, or promoting their careers.
Right.
In fact, they sacrificed
their life and careers.
Established life and careers.
It's the reverse of what we're doing today.
Exactly, exact reverse. They suffered. They incurred the loss.
SubhanAllah.
And as such, they were praised in the Quran and by the Prophet ﷺ that the muhajirs that are praised, the immigrants, are the one who left everything for the sake of Allah, being able to practice their faith freely, and that was in Medina.
Okay.
So when he says La Hijrata, doesn't mean no immigration at all.
Okay, right.
That means you will not be considered among those early muhajirs.
Excellent.
Who were sacrificed because Muslims were in power already.
Right.
They're settled already.
Different circumstances.
Exactly. Different circumstances. So you will not get the same reward like those who sacrificed
people,
a lot.
Of course.
That's one thing. But understanding the hadith also must be in the light of the Quran, which is the higher authority.
Of course.
For sure.
Thank you,
okay?
Doctor.
And the Quran itself tells Muslims, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, encourage people to go around on the earth, explore.
Okay.
So the hijrah is not in itself to be forbidden, unless a result of my hijrah means destruction of my family. If I have that expectation, strong expectation, then it is an individual case. There are people who migrate and their children are even better Muslim than...
SubhanAllah, of course. Yeah, case-by-case scenario. Yeah. Dr. Jamal, I'll have to stop you right there. We're out of time for this segment. You guys stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We have more with Dr. Jamal.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا
Hajj is the largest gathering of Muslims in one place from all over earth. There is no other day in which Allah will free necks from the hellfire. The objective of that gathering is to put these hearts together. Then the day of Arafah. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. We're going to talk about towards an accepted Hajj, towards a Mabrur Hajj. What do you need to do? The blessed days of Dhul Hijjah are blessed for everybody, whether you are in Hajj or not. Complete the rituals of Hajj and Umrah for Allah.
والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك الله.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, dear viewers from around the world, to your program, Let's Talk. I'm still joined by none other than Dr. Jamal Badawi. Thank you, Doctor, for staying with us.
You're welcome.
Excellent. And you guys, we have another special guest. You've seen him on Let's Talk before. He was formerly an elected judge in Switzerland and the former president of the the Green Party in Switzerland. It's an honor to have you once again, Mr. Alessandro Gihebo. Again, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Excellent, you guys. And of course, we have the studio audience. Thank you guys for being here and staying with us as well. You guys, dear viewers at home, we have a cool iReport. We want you to check it out. Stay tuned.
Immigration. The recent trend of immigration from Muslim-dominated countries to the Western world has been the subject of heated political debate in this era of Islamophobia and blatant discrimination against Muslims. Recent hate-mongering groups and so-called political action organizations in the United States and Europe regularly quote unfounded statistics regarding birth rates, immigration percentages, and the decline of Western civilization in order to strike fear and incite hatred against Muslim minorities. Are their claims true? Do Westerners and non-Muslims have a valid concern when they say that they are being overwhelmed with Muslim immigrants? Or is this just pure hate-mongering and profiteering by would-be politicians and so-called experts? A brief survey of history reveals that this trend has existed since the beginning of Western civilization itself. Whenever a new group of immigrants arise, they are subject to racism, discrimination, hatred, and actual acts of physical violence. Quite ironic considering these lands were supposed to be founded on equality and justice for all. How can we forget the murder of a pregnant Muslim from Egypt in 2009 in a German courtroom? The headscarf martyr Marwa al-Sharbini was stabbed 18 times by a Jewish extremist who did not want her to testify in court that he had harassed her for wearing a headscarf in public park with her children. How about the stabbing of a Muslim cab driver from Bangladesh in New York around the anniversary of 9/11 by a radical racist and Islamophobe? More recently, in 2011, a politically motivated racist gunned down over 70 innocent people camping on an island retreat in northern Europe. Immediately, the media condemned this act of so-called Islamic terrorism. When it was discovered that the man who perpetrated this terrible crime was a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male, the term terrorism was removed from all media reports covering the story. Who can ignore the media blackout concerning these acts of hateful violence? These hate-mongers, racists, and bigots claim that Muslims are aiming to change the landscape of their society and have no place within their border. They incessantly chant slogans of freedom, equality, and democracy for all, but these chants fall on deaf ears and are not applied to the Muslim immigrant. African Americans, Hispanics, and Catholics, and other ethnic groups have experienced similar treatment in the recent past. Muslims from around the world continue to suffer by this culture of racism, initiation by hazing commonly referred as integration.
Assalamu alaikum, you guys. Thank you for staying with us, and we certainly hope you enjoyed that report. Starting with you, Brother Jihad, what did you think about that little clip there? It was a bit controversial, I think.
Yeah, it was very strong. The message was perhaps, I would almost say, too strong in many ways. It sees the picture from its worst side, really.
Okay, from its ugly side.
Yes, from the ugly side. But to tell you the truth, there are difficulties, but I mean, it's understandable under many aspects.
Okay.
You know, if somebody comes in your house and you always put on slippers to go around the house, and somebody comes in as a new one, and he instead goes around with his shoes, it disturbs you. I mean,
right, it's different.
It's just because he's acting a little different.
Okay.
And then finds out he's a very nice person and you love him and you're mashallah, but every time you see him going around in his shoes, you think,
right,
this is in a way the kind of perception. They say, oh, this girl, she's fantastic, she's very nice, she's so kind to everyone, but she's wearing that headscarf. I don't know why she's wearing that headscarf. You know, it's the difference. People are afraid of differences.
People are afraid of changing something new. That's an excellent point. Thank you, Brother Jihad. Dr. Jamal, what did you think about the clip? Did you think also it was a bit too strong, or it gave a limited perspective?
I agree. Maybe like Brother Jihad, having lived in the Western countries, I have been always cautioning about making sweeping type of generalizations. And in every society, you will find some extremists, some extremely hateful people. The issue here is what percentage is engaged in this activity.
And what influence they have in the society, of course. Because in the previous episode, we did talk about the media. And this is also a bit of a factor in there, that they're creating a bit of a hysteria, as we can say, so to speak. Brother Jihad, you were in Switzerland as an elected official. What did you see in Switzerland regarding immigration and immigrants?
Well, I was also in a commission against racism. By the way, also the word racism is in a way wrong. We were talking about words.
Yeah, it doesn't apply here, actually. It should be different. Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's only one human race. I mean, this,
of course,
people should be conscious of this. The fact that you have blue eyes and I have black eyes, I mean, we still belong to the same human race.
Of course.
If it changes the color of the skin, it's the same thing. So already the concept of race is wrong. Pertaining humans, first thing. So the problem is mostly cultural, ethnical differences, and the nature is always there. The problem is always there, and you see the different policies in the different countries in Europe, where the French, for example, they try to absorb the other culture, or like in North America, the Americans, the melting pot of America, while in Canada we had the multiculturalism aspect, and which was working very well until the last Prime Minister Turner, what's his name, he kind of messed things up, but otherwise we have these two examples, and I believe that multiculturalism is actually the one that's working best, because this is where we have less problems, where there's multiculturalism, and it's not a coincidence that the extreme right parties, they're fighting against this multiculturalism because they know that works.
It can work. Excellent point, Brother Jihad. Dr. Jamal, what was your experience immigrating to the United States and Canada? Did you experience a lot of this type of treatment? Did you see people experiencing discrimination?
Not much, really. At least in my case, I have been very much, by the grace of Allah, liked and respected by my colleagues in the university, and some of them even consider me like a peacemaker in the departmental meetings, and when there is differing opinions, try to reconcile them and bring some peace in the discussion. So I don't say that nothing happened at all. There are a few things, but to me, in my case, it was minor. But maybe that was the pre-9/11 era. But I'd like to make a comment on something that came in that clip also, about the use of the term integration, that sometimes people mean different things by the term they use. And in fact, I did present one paper one time on the issue of positive integration without assimilation or isolation.
Okay, excellent point. What's the difference between assimilation, isolation, and integration? Let's speak about this.
All right. The best way to understand assimilation is like when you have a barrel of water, and you get a pinch of salt and stir it up.
This is a situation in
France. The salt disappears. That means here assimilation, at least the way I define it, because people, like I say, use things interchangeably. Just my humble understanding of this. So you're totally gone. You lost your identity totally.
Completely.
And if the water was bigger, you can taste even, detect the slightest taste of the salt
of course.
in that. And that, of course, is against Islam, certainly, and against any decent human being. You don't want to lose who you are.
Of course, yeah.
Your own identity.
Yeah, of course.
And for us as Muslims also, we don't want to use it just to blend with others.
Right.
But the other extreme also that some Muslims adopted for long, but now they have been changing, is isolation. So you're living physically in the society, but you're detached. You contact them only to the bare minimum.
Is this a good idea or a bad idea?
Definitely, it's a bad idea. It's not my opinion. I base that also on the story of prophets in the Quran. Some were living in very bad societies, corrupt societies and all, yet the Prophet did not isolate themselves in the mountain and keep their life. They interacted with the people.
Right.
So to isolate oneself is not really very good, even though they argued that you keep your identity and those of your children. But I think, again, following the same approach of wasatiyya, just balance, which is a salient characteristic of Islam. Integration, positive integration that avoids assimilation or isolation is the one that we pursue. But what happens in Europe, that some of the politicians, for example, use the term integrating Muslim, but what they mean, not really positive integration, they mean assimilation. Lose your identity. You don't have to wear hijab. You don't have to do this. Be like us.
Change your name, Muhammad tomorrow, for example.
Exactly. So that's different. But they call it integration, which is rather. So I see integration, positive integration, in a sense of being part of your society. You accept what is good, encourage it, participate in it, avoid things that are offensive to you, but keeping the peace with society and respect for other people to have their own cultures.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor. That's an excellent point. Now, the multiculturalism was promoted in England as well, Brother Jihad, I believe, and in the United States. And you think that system works better than what we have in France, where they're assimilating. Well, what about Switzerland? Because I know there were some problems. They didn't let the Muslims build masjids with minarets. I mean, so there was some friction there. There has to be.
No, this is quite an interesting story because, first of all, Switzerland in itself is a multicultural society.
Excellent point.
I mean, it's 4 different cultures in Switzerland.
Which are?
Well,
with the viewers that may not know.
Yes, the German, the French, and Italian, which is a small minority of 5%. Then there's a very, very small minority of Romansh people. There are about 30,000 people, but they have their language even on the banknotes. I mean, their language is considered official in
part of Switzerland.
Part of Switzerland because it's belongs to the Swiss culture. So Switzerland always has shown a great respect towards multiculturalism. When the Huguenots were kicked out of France in the 17th century or 16th century, they were the Protestants, these were Calvinists, they were sent away from France. Where did they go? They went to Switzerland because that's where they found
freedom, so to speak.
Freedom, yes, and a society ready to accept them. And so, Switzerland has always been actually quite open. It's since very recent times that it's closing up on itself. And the question on the minarets was quite interesting because there's also false perception on that because, of course, the majority of the Swiss people, they voted to ban the minarets, construction of minarets, which is quite a chaotic thing.
Yeah, well, of course it is.
But one must also contextualize the situation. At that time, there were 2 Swiss citizens who were captive of Gaddafi.
It was a political battle.
And Gaddafi went against Switzerland, saying, if the Swiss vote against the minarets, I will bombard Switzerland. So of course, what would the Swiss do? Okay, come and bombard us and see what happens.
Yeah, so it was like a political thing.
Yeah, so many Swiss voted against the minarets just because of this issue.
I
so
see.
This one has to be careful. But it's very, very interesting about this issue of the minarets is that many people actually started to learn about Islam because of this voting.
Excellent.
And actually, many people embraced Islam as a consequence of this. So they went right against the...
Sometimes it happens like that. The media, they go against us, but then subhanAllah, in the end, it seems to come back. Thank you, Fazia, for that wonderful comment.
If I may add, this happened so many times. After the Rushdie satanic verses. The copies of the translation of the Quran in North America and maybe in other places were flying off the shelves, and there was not enough even. And through that, some people, just out of curiosity, and some of them ended up accepting Islam. After the cartoons In Denmark,
excellent point.
Even though the reaction of some Muslim was not really in line with Islam, or with good reason, but even then that generated interest, and some people, like in America also after Rushdie embraced Islam. 9/11, the same thing happened. So
it's amazing, subhanAllah. But Doctor, what you said, the reaction of some Muslims wasn't correct. What should the reaction be in like these tough times? When we're
the reaction is not what I consider to be incorrect, is resorting to violence, threat of murder, and all of these kind of things. If you have some ideas you don't agree with it, counter it rationally and objectively by feeding the correct information.
Right.
That's why at one time there was a great deal of attack on the Prophet ﷺ in North America. You know what? They CARE, one of the advocacy organization there, they said, all right, they collected donations, have had a book about the real personality of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they said, anyone who is interested, call us, we'll send you a free copy.
Okay, and this
That's
is more effective.
the way to be more effective, more positive, not resorting to childish or violent kind of reaction, burning books, and
it feeds into the, of course, doesn't accomplish anything.
This reaction, the violent reaction and condemnation in a very hyper manner, generated interest among the people to give fame to people who otherwise would have nobody would have cared about. Who heard about Rushdie? He was one of the writers.
Right.
But with this controversy, his books sold in huge quantity. Bestseller.
SubhanAllah, it's very interesting, SubhanAllah. And you know, like you said, there's a lot of political things going on behind it with the Rushdie, but SubhanAllah, 9/11, Rushdie, the minarets, it all generates people's interest in Islam.
And maybe some Muslims don't realize that there are some circles or quarters that create some of those events or pushed for it
on purpose.
On purpose, because they studied Muslim and they say they react emotionally and all of that. So they say, look, we told you Muslims are fanatics and irrational.
They're just proving their own points upon
So that's why you notice whenever things get quiet,
something comes up. Someone pops up on purpose. Thank you, Dr. Jamal, for that excellent comment. You guys stay with us. We have to go to a short break. We'll be right back.
Huda TV strives to bring you, our viewers, the best in Islamic programming. Please send your comments and suggestions to feedback@huda.tv.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك.
التلبية, as we all know, is when a Muslim would say لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. Should not say that. Every Muslim should perform Hajj. And when we are performing the Hajj, we need to reach this perfection by seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, by seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and making sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best and we do not know what is good for us. The Kaaba is not the bricks that is being built. The Kaaba is what is behind, or what's behind the meanings of Al-Kaaba, the first house of worship. If a person would know the wisdom behind every move that a person do in matters of worship, then where's the submission comes into the full meanings of it. To remember what Hajar, the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when she went from the Safa to the Marwa, so concerned and disturbed about the affairs of her child Ismail, when he was laying some place between the Safa and the Marwa, crying because of the shortage of food and water.
لك والملك لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned and staying with us for the final segment of your program, Let's Talk. I promised some questions from the studio audience, so we're going to get right to it. Thank you, brothers. Are there any questions from the studio audience?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
First of all, assalamu alaikum to everybody.
Alaikum salam, brother. What is your name and where are you from?
Yes, my name is Hussam Eddin Alam. I'm a student at the Faculty of Sharia and Law in English, the 4th year.
MashaAllah, thank you, brother.
And I'm from Egypt.
Excellent, thank you for being here.
Actually, and as a matter of fact, my question is divided into two halves.
Okay.
The first one is posed to Professor Jamal, and the other one is to Mr. Jihad. Yes.
Excellent.
As for the first half, given the fact that for a wide variety of reasons, some Muslims may have to live in non-Muslim countries and live as minorities. So, based on your papers that you presented, sir, how can Muslims integrate while maintaining their own identity as Muslims? As for the other half, which is posed to Mr. Jihad, now with the rise of the far right in Europe in general and in the Eurozone in general, how do you see the political scene and the security situation for Muslim minorities in Europe?
MashaAllah, thank you for those intelligent questions, brother. Very interesting questions. Thank you very much. Dr. Jamal, would you like to go first? And we'll try to tackle these ones briefly because we have another question as well.
Very quickly, inshallah. To maintain identity begins actually with your own education, with your own attitude, the strength of your own faith. Precisely how it works, well, if there is an activity that does not contradict our Sharia, accept it and participate even if you don't agree with every point, because the Quran says cooperate in what is good and righteous, and that is applicable to cooperating with non-Muslims. Things that are contrary and offensive to your faith, you don't, if there is a drinking party and you don't want to be there, you politely decline, for example. So that's the way to participate in righteous and good activities, or at least neutral activities, and avoid what is wrong, and sometimes compromising on small issues but not basics.
Thank you very much, Doctor. You have a nice, very easy way of getting along and not compromising things. It's very nice. Thank you for sharing that, Doctor. Brother Jihad, with your, the second half of the question was for you.
Yes. Well,
the Eurozone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the right wing, of course, right now are on a surge, and on the 23rd of October there are national elections in Switzerland, and we'll see if the right-wing party of Switzerland will again win the elections as it did 4 years ago. But to tell you the truth, there is of course a radicalization in society as a whole. So anything that tends to bring this way or that way is usually what is having more success on a political scheme. Whatever is moderate is being lost. So this is an unfortunate situation in Europe. But I think Egypt, with its revolution, has opened the eyes to a lot of people in the world, to tell you the truth. There is, in Spain, indignados, in America, you see the people in Wall Street. They're starting to open their eyes, and they're actually seeing that the ruling elite actually manages to rule only because they manage to separate, to divide the people.
The people, yeah.
And it's so they, from the ivory towers, they look down on the people, you know, fighting each other, and they do. Oh, this guy is going to win, so let's help the other guys. Oh, now they're losing, so let's help them.
Like a game
so they're
of chess.
actually using this, and people are realizing that this is what's actually happened, and they said, no, how else?
We finished. We're done with this. Thank you, Brother Jeff, for that excellent comment. Real quick, brother, do you have a question as well?
Right. I want to say also that there are a lot of kinds of immigration. We have like education immigration. My friends and I are the part of that immigration. We immigrate from Bosnia to Egypt for the reason education. I learned that one beautiful words that today's learners are tomorrow leaders. But that tomorrow leaders, who are we in the reality? We now have, like example, Somalia. That's the problem. And we don't care, a lot of us don't care about that.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow it will be Egypt or Bosnia, and we still don't care about that. And that's, I think, that problem, we must care about that. And also my question is, in the immigration, if we immigrate a lot, immigrate in the reality, if I immigrate in Turkey, I don't ever return in my country, and I don't care about my brothers and my sisters, my families in the country, what it will happen in my country? It will lost or it will stay real. Can you ask me?
Excellent point, brother. Thank you for that wonderful question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to answer your question and tell you, we actually did a show about Somalia, and we were talking about this issue, like nobody cares, everybody forgot about Somalia, subhanAllah, but we care about Somalia Huda TV. But Dr. Jamal, if you could talk real briefly, we only have about a minute left. Can you just talk about immigration for educational purposes? These brothers came from Bosnia to Egypt. That's praiseworthy, of course.
That's very praiseworthy, and that's non-controversial, really, as far as I know.
No controversy at all, of course not.
Not that I know of. So, in fact, the fact that you integrate in society does not mean, actually, that you forget that you are part of the body of the Muslim Ummah, which knows no geographic boundaries. So you're doing both. It's not at the expense of this.
Or that.
You have to care about both. You don't only have to care about other Muslims everywhere. you have to care about all humans, because the Prophet ﷺ in one hadith, الناس عيال الله وأحبهم إلى الله أنفعهم لعيالي أو كما قال, he says human beings are like the dependents of Allah. People, they didn't say Muslims only. And he says the most beloved of them to Allah are those who are more beneficent to the dependents of Allah.
Thank you, Dr. Jamal.
Which include non-Muslims as well.
Of course, everybody. We have to care about everybody. Yeah. Dr. Jamal, I'm sorry I have to stop you there. It's the end of the program. Sure. Brother Jihad, thank you for coming. We're going to bring you back for sure, inshallah, as long as you schedule permitting.
Thank you.
And brothers from all the way from around the world, from Egypt, from Canada, from Somalia, from Bosnia, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you again on Huda TV, inshallah. Dr. Jamal, thank you for coming to our studios, inshallah. Do you have any websites or anything that people want to learn more about you or read some of your books? Where can they find you?
Actually, the material are scattered in different sites. And anything that appear in my name, I have no idea about it. They just put the name and don't put material. But there is a lot of material on YouTube.
Okay, just put your name.
Just put the name Jamal Badawi, Jamal, Badawi, Badawi. There are lots of material there, dialogues or lectures.
And same thing with Google.
And then, you can get it through Google, but YouTube can get you very quickly there. The tapes, the extensive number of tapes are found in Islami City. Islamic City.
Islami City. ISLAMI.
This one is .com.
.com. Okay.
Very important site that began to build up material that used to be on Islam Online before is called On Islam, one word.
www.onislam.net.
Okay,
excellent.
So you get .net, .com.
Okay, we're going to...
And .org.
Excellent.
.org would be like Jannah. JANNAH.org.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for your time once again, Dr. Jamal. All right, you guys, thank you. Thank all the viewers around the world for staying tuned and watching another excellent and interesting episode of Let's Talk. We look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, we leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك.
Hajj is the largest gathering of Muslims in one place from all over earth. There is no other day in which Allah will free necks from the hellfire. The objective of that gathering is to put these hearts together. Then the day of Arafah. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. We're going to talk about towards an accepted Hajj, towards a Mabrur Hajj. What do you need to do? The blessed days of Dhul Hijjah are blessed for everybody, whether you are in Hajj or not. Complete the rituals of Hajj and Umrah for Allah.
والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك الله.
Dear brothers and sisters, pilgrims to the Holy Land, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And congratulations for this great blessing that Allah has given you, which is going for Hajj. We'll be talking about people with chronic diseases going to Hajj. They should be having some special care and special preparations for the Hajj. Of course, you should be visiting your doctor sometime, maybe a month before going to Hajj. You should be asking him for adjusting your medication, for prescribing you which medication should you take. either to increase the doses or to decrease the doses. And you should have a medical report from your doctor stating what's your condition and what drugs are you receiving, and make sure that the drugs names are not in the names that you buy it from the pharmacy, but rather the generic names, so that names of the drugs change from one country to the other. Maybe in your country the name of the drug will be different from that in the Saudi Arabia if you have to buy it from there. And of course you should have a card with your name, which is usually the pilgrims would be wearing it. You should state, or the card should have the disease that you suffer from should be written on it. May Allah forbid that you have some problem or some crisis with your disease, the diagnosis will be known. Of course, there are many diseases, and many of them are having different aspects or different ways of treating them. But generally speaking, you have to have all your medication with you. Some of the medications are forbidden to be taken either on board or to be going into the Saudi Arabia. Generally, those which have some sedatives or some drugs like codeine or something like that, you should have the prescription from your doctor that you necessarily have to use this drug, or else you will not be allowed to take it with you. People with cancer or problems like that, or low immunity, should report that and should be taken care of. Maybe you should have your wheelchair if you're not being able to walk for a long time. Let's talk about some specific diseases. The people with heart diseases, people with hypertension, people with problems like lung diseases, all of them should not do excessive effort. They should have the wheelchair. They should have somebody to assist them in walking and doing the tawaf, or going around the Kaaba, or the sa'i between the Safa and Marwa mounts. And of course, you should have somebody either through their campaign or with you personally the blood pressure measurement device, and should have a good and a very good nutrition that would help you to go and perform the Hajj. And of course, you should have enough amount or plenty of water. Unless your condition forbids this, you should have lots of water to avoid having stones or avoid having sunstroke, because the heat there is very high. You should have your creams, you should have your ointments, and you should have your, to avoid the skin crackling, and when you walk you should have good sandals. Maybe you should have on the sandals the silicone attached to them, the silicone pads that would make your walking easier. For those people who would have asthma, I would recommend that they would have the inhalers, extra inhalers with them. And for those people who would have chest disease, they should have the mask on all of the time. We wish you a very pleasant time there. May Allah accept your deeds. May Allah accept your du'as, and please make lots of dua for myself and the crew here in Huda TV and all our families. Until we meet you again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Huda TV strives to bring you, our viewers, the best in Islamic programming. Please send your comments and suggestions to feedback@huda.tv.
وإذ بوأنا لإبراهيم مكان البيت ألا تشرك بي شيئا وطهر بيتي للطائفين والقائمين والركع السجود وأذن في الناس بالحج يأتوك رجالا وعلى كل ضامر يأتين من كل فج عميق ليشهدوا منافع لهم ويذكروا اسم الله في أيام معلومات على ما رزقهم من بهيمة الأنعام فكلوا منها وأطعموا البائس الفقير ثم ليقضوا تفثهم وليوفوا نذورهم وليطوفوا بالبيت العتيق ذلك ومن يعظم حرمات الله فهو خير له عند ربه وأحلت لكم الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم فاجتنبوا الرجس من الأوثان واجتنبوا قول الزور.
Allah Almighty says, "And when we designated the site of the house for Ibrahim, saying, Associate nothing as partner in worship with me. Sanctify my house for those who circumambulate it, those who stand in prayer, and those who bow and prostrate, and proclaim the pilgrimage to all mankind. They will come to you on foot and on every lean camel from every distant quarter, that they may witness the benefits provided for them, and mention the name of Allah on appointed days over that which He has provided for them of sacrificial animals. So eat thereof, and feed the indigent and the needy. Then let them complete the prescribed duties, fulfill their vows, and circumambulate the ancient house. Such is the pilgrimage. And whoever honors the sacred rites of Allah, it is best for him in the sight of his Lord. The flesh of cattle has been made lawful unto you, except for what has been previously specified. So shun the abomination of idols and all false speech."
حجا مبرورا وذنبا مغفورا وسعيا مشكورا لبيك الله حجا مبرورا وذنبا مغفورا وسعيا مشكورا لبيك الله حجا مبرورا وذنبا مغفورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Dear viewers, I'm very pleased to welcome you to your program, The Nobles, a program that has been dedicated to these great personalities, people that we look up to and try our best to have them as our role models at a time when there are many unworthy so-called stars that don't deserve to be models for any, not to mention Muslim men, women, and children. Respected viewers, the last episode was about the great lady, the noble personality, Salama, may Allah be pleased with her, in which we traveled with you back into history to look